Welcome to Recalculating Small Business. Like its award-winning book, Recalculating is dedicated to small business in America. Your hosts are Don Mazzella and Dan Perkins. Don Mazzella is the editor-in-chief of the Small Business Digest. Dan Perkins is a registered investment advisor with 43 years' experience in managing money.
Dan Perkins here, your co-host, along with Don Mazzella of Recalculating for Small Business. Our radio program is dedicated to you, helping the small business owners increase their profits. We draw our name from Recalculating, voted the best small business book of 2017 by the Independent Press. In this book, it features ways to grow your small business. Now, here's Don Mazzella.
Recalculating for Small Business. I'm David Katzmeyer, co-producer for Recalculating, filling in for your host, Don Mazzella. Don was called away for today's program, but will return for subsequent shows. Meanwhile, your other host, Dan Perkins, is here for what is sure to be a very interesting show. Our guest is Mike Brown, research analyst for LendEDU. Their unique website at LendEDU.com is where students and others compare loan refinance rates and save time and money by comparing options. LendEDU creates transparency in these markets, and it helps consumers make educated decisions. This comes from the benefit of proper analysis and information. Surveys play a big role in this by giving us useful data for perspectives that would not otherwise be obtained. Take, for instance, the pertinent question of what would many Americans do for a raise? The answer might surprise you. Here to tell us more about LendEDU.com is Mike Brown. Mike, we welcome you to Recalculating for Small Business. And here to ask you a few questions is your host, Dan Perkins. Dan, over to you.
Thank you, David. And Michael, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
So let's talk a little bit about your company, LendEDU. And is it a web-based company, or does it also have bricks and mortar?
We are an entirely web-based company. All of our, consultations and all of our, offers that go through our marketplace are all done entirely online. We actually did one time have a customer come into our office because it's posted on our website, and we kind of froze up because we weren't sure what to do because we never had a customer come into our office. It's usually done over the phone.
Probably a little scary for a lot of what do we do? We've never had to actually talk to a customer sitting face to face. Unusual.
Yeah, exactly.
So how long have you been in business?
Right. So we've been in business since 2014. We were founded by Nate Matherson and Matt Lenhard, who both went to the University of Delaware together. And Nate actually had student loan debt himself and realized that, there's marketplaces for mortgages and credit cards and auto loans, but there really weren't any marketplaces for student loans. So that's where the idea for LendEDU really came about. So we were founded in 2014. They went through a couple startup accelerators in Iowa and Silicon Valley in California. And now we are based in Hoboken, New Jersey. We are a company of 12 people, and we are a marketplace for student loan refinancing, private student loans, personal loans, credit cards, and even pet insurance. So what this means is if you are looking to take out a credit card, you could come to LendEDU.com and you would tell us some of your personal information, such as your social security number and what your job is and what your income is. And then we would tell you what the best credit card deal is for your personal situation. So we do that for credit cards, student loan refinancing, private student loans, pet insurance, like I just said, and personal loans. But our bread and butter has and always will be student loan refinancing.
So I worked a number of years ago with the National Education Association and put together a student loan program with at the time was Nellie Mae. Okay. And then the government really took over the student loan business under the Obama administration. Most recent statistics that I've seen is that the actual dollars outstanding on student loans is now greater than credit card debt. That's still true?
Yes, that is correct. So LendEDU's most recent data pegs the outstanding student loan debt in the United States at $1.45 trillion. This is the second largest class of consumer debt, only to mortgages.
So when I look at student loan, and I have 4 sons, all who went to college. My number 2 son went to George Washington University, and I was speaking to him last week, and he told me that tuition, room, and board at George Washington is now $75,000 a year.
Wow. Yeah, I believe it.
$75,000. So if we can make an assumption that's probably not valid, that tuition and fees and room and board don't go up for 4 years, you're looking at $300,000. $300,000 for an undergraduate degree at George Washington University. And many years ago, I wrote the MoneyWise column for Entrepreneur magazine. And the articles that got me the most response from readers were on student loans and debt. And I said at the time, and this is probably 25 years ago when I wrote this column, I said, I'm wondering whether or not economically one can justify the cost of college to the eventual economic benefit that somebody's going to get by getting the advanced degree. And I'm guessing that from the time I wrote that article, over the last 25 to 30 years, it hasn't proven so. We see the unemployment rate of college graduates. We see the number of people that have debt and don't complete college. We now see, and that $300,000 was assuming that the student graduates in 4 years. What's the average graduation time today? Do you know?
I would peg it somewhere between 4 and 5 years. We don't have an exact stat on it, but I would guess it would be somewhere between 4 and 5.
So we're talking probably another $35,000 to $50,000 or another $75,000. So we'll be looking at $375,000. So as somebody in the credit business, in the business of refinancing student loans, do you also provide advice to parents and students about taking out loans?
Yes, we do. We don't really offer it like in-person advice or over-the-phone advice, but what we do is we publish educational content, covering how to pay for college and the cost of education, and we, provide different ideas of ways to fund your education, such as applying for scholarships. You wouldn't believe the number of weird scholarships there are out there according to your specific situation. Like, you can pretty much find a scholarship for just about anything. So we do encourage, applying to as many scholarships as possible. The one thing that you have to worry about with scholarships is that there are a lot of scams when it comes to scholarships. If you're ever applying for a scholarship and they ask you to pay an upfront fee or to pay a large amount of money, I would not trust it, and I would approach with extreme caution, because usually those are scams. And usually what they do is they'll take, let's say they'll take 100,000 applicants, and they'll charge each applicant a scholarship application fee, and then they'll only pick 1 or 2 winners, and then the rest of the money is basically profit. And they'll just send you an email saying, oh, sorry, you weren't chosen to win the scholarship, but in reality only maybe 1 or 2 people were. So scholarships are a great tool. You just have to approach them with caution and be aware of what you're applying to.
I think that's terrific advice. I do know that I was told by a college counselor, if you do not get scholarship money in your freshman year, don't think you can't get any scholarship money going forward, because if you make it through your freshman year successfully, they said you may find opportunities for sophomore, junior, and senior years to get scholarship money that wasn't available to you as a freshman. Let me ask you another question about students. Do you have any statistics on do you have any statistics on the number of students who actually complete college?
In terms of a graduation
rate.
Yeah, let me try to see if we have something. So, trying to find something. Right now, the most recent stats I see is 59% of people go on to actually graduate and get their bachelor's degree.
So
we actually have some pretty...
Go ahead, I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, we have some pretty interesting stats regarding, like, student loan debt and graduates. So, for example, our most recent data found that 60% of all college graduates graduated with student loan debt. So more than half of people attending college are requiring student loans to attain that degree. And amongst those graduates, we found that the average student loan debt they had was $27,975, so almost $28,000. And if you think 60% of the college population is requiring student loan debt to finance their degree, and each of them have about $28,000 worth of debt, that's a whole lot of debt going across the country.
That's $28,000 by the time they graduate in 4 to 4.5 years?
That is
that what you're saying?
Yep.
I'm not going to argue your numbers with you. I've seen what the average of private schools are and what the average is of public universities, tuition, room and board, books and fees. That doesn't sound like it's $27,000 a lot of money, but I find it hard to believe that would even pay for one full year.
Yeah, it does seem rather small when all things are considered, especially just the overall cost of a college education. But the thing to remember is that it is an average. So I know people that have maybe $200,000 worth of student loan debt, and there are also people that didn't have any student loan debt. So It may seem a little small, but I think it kind of. Myself, I'm a student debtor, and I actually fell right within that range, that average range. I've been paying it off for 2 years now, but so right now I have about $20,000 left. So I was right in that zone.
Now that's for undergraduate work. Do you have any numbers
correct.
on people who go on to master's or doctorate, what their debt load is?
So we found that we actually have like the average student loan debt for each type of advanced degree, whether it be an MBA or a law degree. The only thing that we don't have, which would be really interesting to find, is how much does it cost to attain a PhD and how much debt is required. But I could just run off a couple real quick. So if you're getting your MBA, the average debt is $42,000. If you're getting your law degree, the average debt that we have is $140,600. If you're getting a Master's of Education, it's $50,000, closer to $51,000 actually. And if you're in the medicine and health sciences field, you can expect to graduate with about $161,000 worth of student debt.
So that would be in the last example, $161,000. That would be a combination of both undergraduate and graduate costs.
Right. Yes.
It's cumulative.
Correct, but most of it being attributed to the graduate degree.
Right. So, what is your source of funds to provide the refinancing for the debt?
So what we do is we work with the refinance lenders. We don't actually source the money to refinance that student loan debt. We work with the lenders, such as the biggest one in the game right now is SoFi. They've been growing rapidly for like 3 or 4 years. They're trying to become a bank, so we'll see how that goes. But they're really big. So we work with like SoFi is a big one, College Ave, LFi, Earnest are just a couple of refi lenders. And what we do is we work with them. And so someone would come to our website that is looking to refinance their student loan debt. And depending on their personal situation, their finances, what their degree was, what their current occupation was, we would tell them which refinance lender would be the best option for them where they could potentially save the most money.
And so is it always done on a economic or financial basis, which based on the rate, or are there other factors that would determine who's the best refi?
So it is based a lot on the student borrower's economic situation. Credit score goes into it a lot, which is why I recommend that once you graduate, wait a little bit to refinance your student loans so that you can build a bit of credit history, whether that be through renting a property or taking out a couple credit cards, or, even repaying what student loan debt you have. Build a little bit of credit history. Let your credit score become a little bit higher. That way, when you do refinance, you can get the lowest possible interest rate / a longer repayment term. Like I said, I've been repaying my debt for 2 years now, and I still have yet to refinance, just because when I want to refinance, I want my credit score to be in that excellent range. So credit score is a big factor. The other big factor is what your degree is and, what your future occupation is. So we have dentists and lawyers come to our website all the time looking to refinance large sums of money. And even though they have a large amount of debt, they usually don't have any trouble finding a good interest rate because of their future earnings potential being a doctor or a lawyer. And then another thing that may help you get a lower interest rate as a student borrower is having a parent or a guardian or someone else that's credit worthy cosign on a student loan or a refinance student loan. I think cosigning is a very useful tool as long as you understand the risks that go along with it. I think a lot of people that cosign, they think they're kind of a safety net on the student loan, but they're actually an equal partner. So if your son or daughter makes a late payment on that student loan, it's not just their credit score that's going to be damaged, it's your credit score as well. So cosigning is great as long as you understand the dangers of it.
Right. So are there certain refi lenders that are better in, using an example, who deal with large loans for doctors or lawyers versus better organizations that work with teachers and liberal arts degrees? I mean, are they that sophisticated in the refi business, or all the lenders pretty much the same?
Yeah, that's correct. The latter's correct. All of them are pretty much the same. They're all going to look for doctors and lawyers, obviously. But, there's no real ones that are real specific for a certain occupation or a certain degree. One of the lenders that we work with actually is Funding University, and they actually do have a niche, and their niche is student loans without a cosigner. So if you're unable to get a cosigner on a student loan, they usually are a good place to look for a loan because they are willing to take on those high-risk loans that, if you don't have a cosigner, it is going to be a bit of a risky loan in the eyes of a lender. But Funding U, that they've kind of carved out a niche in that space and are willing to take on those more high-risk borrowers.
How does your company get paid?
So we make our money. So if a student comes through our website and they find a refinance lender that works well for them, and they end up refinancing their student loan with one of the refinance lenders that we work with, if they end up refinancing that, and the whole entire process was facilitated by going through LendEDU, we take a small percentage of the amount of the loan that was refinanced. So we don't make any money off the student. We don't make any money off the student debtor, but we just take a tiny percentage from the lender. Okay. And then we also work. So if you come to our website and you check out our, best student loan refinancing options page, where we list out all of the refinance lenders that we work for, and you go and you want to check out SoFi, and you click on SoFi through our website, and you're redirected to SoFi's page to learn more about that company. We do work with SoFi so that when, someone gets to their website through our website, we do make a amount of money. So we're really more of a marketing company than we are a finance company when you look at it that way.
So you also said you do credit cards.
That's
again,
correct.
the same way you help the consumer figure out what's the best credit card deal, and I assume you get a similar kind of arrangement. If there's a balance, you get paid on something on the balance that might be transferred from one company to the other.
Yes, that's all of our pages, or all of our products rather, they work the exact same in the way that we make money.
Okay. Are you national in scope?
Yes, we are. Being a website, it's fairly easy to, get your brand out there on a nationwide level. Most of the lenders that we actually work with are based in California, in like the San Francisco Bay Area. But yes, we see people visit our site looking for financial advice from Alaska to New York City, so it's all over the place.
And what's your website again?
The website is LendEDU.com.
Super.
And
okay, thank you. So you have other products. We've talked about student loans and credit cards. What else do you offer?
So we do personal loans as well, which so we do personal loans, which is if you're just like looking for a loan to do some home renovation projects, or if you're looking for a loan maybe to buy a motorcycle, we could help you with that through a personal loan. And we also do my personal favorite, because of the oddity of it, is pet insurance. Pet insurance is actually like a pretty fast-growing sector in the insurance industry. People love their pets, and they want to make sure they're insured. So we do work with a couple pet insurers in the same way that we would work with a student loan lender.
So it seems rather strange that a company that's in student loans and refinancing of student loans, credit cards, and other financial instruments would be in the pet insurance business. How did you come across making the decision to get into pet insurance?
We just saw that it was like a growing industry. It was, especially when you look at other products in the insurance industry, and we saw that a lot of people were looking for pet insurance just through tracking Google and what people search for on Google, and through that we thought this could be a viable vertical to get into, and we kind of just went from there. Reached out to a couple pet insurance providers, and really just went from there and started working with them. It is a financial product, so we are a personal finance marketplace is how we like to brand ourselves. We did start, originally all we did was student loans, which was like in 2014, 2015, and the student loan business is seasonal because a lot of people in the summer is when people are looking to refinance once they've graduated or once they're in between colleges and universities. So, while we did start with student loans, we have almost rebranded ourselves as an all-encompassing personal finance site where we can handle personal loans, credit cards, and even pet insurance, because it is a personal finance subject.
Right. So what's the future look like for your organization? Are you considering other products?
We are always looking for new products. Right now there is nothing in like the immediate pipeline. The future is just, keep growing as fast as we can and keep helping out our consumers find the best personal finance deal for their specific situation.
And it's all done on the web.
Yep.
So you're doing instant messaging or text messaging. You're not actually talking to the client.
No, we do have a widget on our website where you can click on it, and if you have any questions, you can submit a question like, hey, can you tell me a little bit about what interest rates I would qualify for? I just graduated with a political science degree. So you can ask any questions like that, and we will have an expert answer you back shortly, giving you the best advice and redirecting you to the page that you should be looking for on our website.
Well, Michael, we have about 2 minutes left in this segment. What do you think the outlook is going to be for students who are graduating with student loan balances?
Right.
As far as finding. Go ahead.
So I think, the outlook hasn't changed much. Student loan debt is pretty interesting in this country. I do talk to a lot of people in the media and people that are in the field, and there is an ongoing debate on whether or not the student loan debt total in this country should be called a crisis or not. Some people don't think it should be. Some people think it's, while the cost of education has gone up, the student loan debt hasn't really changed. They think, other generations have dealt with the same amount of debt in the past. And then there are other people that do think it's a crisis, could be responsible for maybe a minor financial downturn. I know when the mortgage debt crisis happened in 2009, the outstanding debt was about $10 trillion. So student loan debt is only 10% of the way there, so still a ways to go. But in terms of students, I think there are a lot more options available for them now than there ever were before in terms of going to a site like LendEDU and, trying to refinance their student loans. They're just trying to learn more about their student loan debt. So there are a lot more helpful resources out there. One of the things that I found encouraging is that a lot more employers now are offering student loan repayment benefits in that you come work for us and we'll deposit $200 a month into your student loan account to help you pay off your debt as fast as possible. So I think employers are realizing, this could be a really good selling point for us because there's so many people with debt that if we start offering to help pay their debt, we might see some more better qualified applicants come in.
Right. We've been talking to Mike Brown, an analyst at LendEDU.com on student loans and other form of credit. If you didn't hear all of this interview, you can go to our website, recalculating.biz, and hear the entire interview with Mike. And you can hear all the interviews that Don and I have done over the last year, almost year and a half. So go to the website, recalculating.biz. And Mike, thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. Had a pleasure being on. Thanks for having me.
Want to know more about health savings accounts for your company or yourself? Go to 2hsa.com and get a free employer's primer. Health savings accounts are a cost-effective way of offering health care benefits to your employees and yourself. HSAs build retirement funds for your employees, improve morale, and reduce your health care benefit cost. For a free employer guide to HSAs, go to 2hsa.com. That's 2hsa.com.
Dan Perkins here with your recalculating.biz small business tip of the day. Are you having trouble growing your business? Do you have a mentor? Sometimes running a small business can be overwhelming. You need a mentor. A business mentor can help you in many facets of your business. So here's your recalculating.biz small business tip of the day. The SBA has a free program called SCORE. These individuals give of their time and share their experiences to create the next generation of small business owners who help grow the American economy. SCORE is the nation's largest network of volunteer expert business mentors. It provides free and confidential business consulting. These volunteers will work with individuals on starting a business, solving business problems, and growing a business. Visit www.score.org and you may just hit a home run. This has been your Recalculating Small Business Tip of the Day. I'm Dan Perkins. Dan Perkins here from recalculating.biz with your featured book. I want to tell you about a recent interview I had with Bob Bethel, a turnaround specialist with lots of success in small business. Bob's new book is Strengthen Your Business, Fail-Proof Strategies for Small Business. He tells us of his life successes and failures that have made him and his clients so successful. Over the years, Bob has brought 77 companies back from the brink and changed them into thriving, profitable businesses. His energy is amazing, and at 74, he proves that you can still have a great deal to give others if you just try. His suggestions are easy to understand and very helpful. One insight struck me was that most companies do not have a plan. The old Chinese proverb says, if you don't know where you're going, then any road will take you there, is true today. Bob Bethel's book, Strengthen Your Business, can be found at Amazon.com or can be ordered at your local bookstore. This has been Dan Perkins with your Recalculating.biz featured book. Dan Perkins here from Recalculating.biz with your small business tip of the day. Have you ever worked really hard to land an order only to find out that you lost it? There are times where we really want an order from a prospective client, and then you find out after all your hard work, the order went to a competitor. We learn wisdom from our failures much more than from our successes. It still hurts to lose the order, but losing an order teaches us a great deal about what kind of business person we really are. So here's your recalculating.biz small business tip of the day. When you find out that you lost the order, don't send an email. Send a letter to the head of the business unit that placed the order. Tell that person that you are disappointed that you didn't get the order, but that you'll work even harder to get the next one. Ask him to tell you what you can do so the next time the order's in play, you can win it. This has been Dan Perkins with your recalculating.biz small business tip of the day.
Welcome to Recalculating for Small Business. I'm David Katzmeyer, co-producer for Recalculating, filling in for your host, Don Mazzella. Don was called away from today's program, but he will return for subsequent shows. Meanwhile, your other host, Dan Perkins, is here for what is sure to be a very interesting show. Our guest is Brad Lehl, Merger and Acquisitions Manager at Lutz.us. Lutz offers accounting services, technical services and development, financial planning and services, as well as marketing and acquisitions. Brad Lehl, spelled L-E-H-L, has more than 20 years of related experience. His specialty is in marketing and acquisition advisory services, and he emphasizes seller representation from engagement to close. Brad is here to tell us about the importance of earnings before interest, taxes, and amortization. The acronym for this is EBITA. This is of particular importance to companies thinking of selling or raising capital. So making it easier for us to know before we act is Brad Lehl of Lutz.us. Brad, we welcome you to the Recalculating for Small Business program, and here to ask you a few questions is your host, Dan Perkins. Dan, over to you.
Thank you, David. And Brad, welcome to the show. We're looking forward to our conversation with you.
Yep, thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah, I am a registered investment advisor with 43 years of managing money. And I have a son who is an investment banker who works in acquisitions, mergers and acquisitions of ESOP program, creating ESOP programs. So it's a fascinating subject, perhaps in some cases difficult for a lot of people to understand, especially if they're not involved in the business, but maybe if they have a successful small business at some point in time in their career, they will be involved in a merger or an acquisition. So let me start off by asking you a question about what's going on today. We are experiencing, starting in January of 2014, the Department of Labor is estimating that there will be about 10,000 Americans who will retire a day for the 19 years following 2014. A lot of those are baby boomers who have had businesses that they've grown to be very successful and are either looking to sell or sell them to the employees or merge them with somebody else. And this is going to continue for another 15 years. So in the case of small business, which is where we are, do you see merger and acquisition activity continuing to grow?
Well, at least in the near term, certainly, based on the economy and just kind of what we hear from people and what we're seeing. Now, certainly, I guess, having said that, longer term, some of the demographic statistics you mentioned with the wealth transfer and the aging of the baby boomers, there's going to be a longer-term continuation, likely, of that transfer of businesses as those baby boomers age and retire and so forth. And then going back again to the near term, at least the last couple of years, have been quite good. 2017 was a year that saw, multiples that reached all-time highs by some measures, certainly at or above historic highs. Coming off the trough and call it 2009, things have been steadily trending higher. A few bumps in the road with elections and economic fluctuations, but in general, the trend has been good. It's been healthy. It's been up, and the banks have been willing to lend, and things have been fairly healthy. There's been a lot of fundraising activity that went on in the private equity community. People were looking to diversify their holdings, away from real estate in some cases, and stocks, and so private equity has become a popular alternative asset class. So there's been a very healthy fundraising trend that's gone on. So there is a lot of capital out there with funds that have been raised in recent years. And anytime there's an abundance of capital out there and the economy is healthy, people are looking to acquire, and so that's fueled some of the healthy multiple expansion. When I say multiple expansion, I just mean how much buyers are willing to pay for a business that's been trending higher. And again, with the banks sort of back in the game in recent years after the financial meltdown of 7 or 8 years ago, it's been a good, healthy environment. Not crazy, but just good, vigorous, healthy, active, and by all measures, it seems to be continuing that direction, although, things can certainly change. But as you pointed out, the longer-term trend for sort of momentum in M&A activity appears like it'll remain intact.
Brad, why do you think, let me preface my question by you and I who work in this business, understand this business. There may be some of our listeners who don't understand multiple expansion. So before I ask my next question, would you, it's really a function of pricing. Would you explain what multiple expansion means and why you think the multiple is expanding?
Yeah, so when I say multiple expansion, to explain some of the lingo, to kind of cut to the core of it, companies in the middle market, when I say middle market, I generally think of under $1 billion. When I say $1 billion, I mean in terms of what that business is worth, so transaction size, valuation of the company. In our world at Lutz, we have a division here at Lutz. Lutz is an accounting firm, just real quickly, so we know where I'm coming from. And we have a division within Lutz called Lutz M&A. It's a division where we advise companies on acquisition. So in our segment, we typically focus on companies that have between 1 and 10 of earnings, or EBITA, EBITA, which was referenced in the introduction. And the reason we define our market based on that is because EBITDA, again, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization, is the metric, is the financial barometer that most buyers, most middle market buyers, private equity firms, strategic buyers will use to gauge what they feel is the earnings, earnings power, or the real true earnings, and it's a proxy for what the cash flow generation, cash generating ability of that company is. So it's a metric, it's a term that's used constantly in the middle market. And when we talk about multiple, we're talking about what a buyer, a multiple of that, whatever that EBITDA is. If a company's earning, say, $2 million in EBITDA, then how much of a multiple of that would a buyer be willing to pay? So in our world, when I say our world, the lower middle market, which is again, specific to Lutz, usually deals under $100 million. Between 10 and 100 is how we define the lower, or in some cases even the micro middle market. It's a market segment that's a notch above what you would typically think of as a mom and pop type business, a single location. Just to use an example, maybe a single standing restaurant, tanning salons, bars, things like that, dry cleaners that typically are a single location or a very few number of locations, usually in one geographic area. That's not the world we typically play in. That's usually what's referred to as a business broker, which is slightly different than merger and acquisition advisor, which is what we refer to ourselves as. And it's really just a function of the size of the deal and the types of buyers that you would be approaching. But anyway, going back in the middle market world, people will define multiples again as a multiple of that EBITA. So again, if you're doing $2 million of EBITA and a buyer pays 5 times that, then your company would theoretically be worth $10 million. So over time, those multiples will kind of ebb and flow. In recent years, they bottomed out in the 08-09 time frame with the economy, and they've been trending back up. In our world, again, under $100 million, I pulled some data, and right out of the Great Recession, you would have, on average, again, this is across hundreds and hundreds of deals, 5.5 times was roughly speaking on the data that I was looking at in around the 09 time frame. And in 2016, we were back above 6, and in 2017, that average multiple had now creeped closer to 7. And so that's what I mean by multiple expansion, or
okay.
They can contract as well. So anyway.
Okay. So Brad, let me move on. If we look at what's been going on the institutional side of the market, and I'm just gonna take just a little bit of time. The private equity funds, some of them have closed. The leveraged buyout funds have seen significant decline in their activity. Because the returns have not been there in the private equity, leveraged buyout, or other types of specialty transactions. And it sounds like what you're saying is that the merger and acquisition might be the new hotspot in the market. Is that true?
That could be. I mean, I can tell you we're seeing, again, there's different segments and different, when we talk about buyout funds, some of that can refer to the very, very large, more commonly known firms like, a KKR or a Blackstone, and these are mega Carlyle. These are massive companies that do global deals, and they typically do buyouts of very large, often public companies, because they have so much capital to deploy. They have to do very large transactions to get their capital to work and to generate returns. And so these are the types of big private equity firms, again, that would, that would take, like, say, a Dell computer private. These are massive transactions. Now, in our world,
right,
the lower middle market, the returns have actually been very good. In our world, it tends to be a little different. It tends to be less focused on, say, cost cutting. In the lower middle market, it's usually more, there's an opportunity for these funds to make money by improving performance of companies. A lot of it is top line growth driven, so they tend to be growth oriented funds, and not so much financial engineering or cost cutting, but it's more about how do we grow, how do we expand, how do we professionalize the company, more modest use of leverage. These are companies that typically don't have bloated cost structures. It's more they have challenges in terms of a management team that may not be, I don't want to say up to the task, but may not have the skill set needed to sort of take the company to the next level, and that's where the private equity firms oftentimes in the lower middle market can come in and really add value in terms of, again, growth and strategy and M&A, and with that growth and the growth in EBITDA, you can see multiples expand even within the same company. So a private equity firm might buy a company that's doing $2 million of EBITDA, hold it for 5 or 7 years, and come up with some great ideas on how to grow this company with the existing management team and take it to a $10 million EBITDA company. And the odds are that company, if it was purchased at, say, 5 times EBITDA, might now trade for, say, 8 times. So you get kind of a multiplier effect in terms of the valuation and the value that they can create. So that's an interesting aspect of what I call the lower middle market, is you not only, it's growth oriented, and you also can expand the multiple within that same investment. So when you combine that with some leverage, and again, a multiple that might go from 5 to 7, they can generate pretty attractive returns in most cases, not all cases, but generally speaking, they're quite successful.
So let's take the time we have left to look at one of our listeners. And let's say that listener has been a man or a woman who started a business 20, 25 years ago. It's been successful. He's got children. The children worked in the business when they were young and maybe during college years, but they're not interested in running the business. What are the things that a business owner who's thinking about selling his business, what are some of the things that he or she needs to do to get his company ready for sale?
Yeah, well, to jump back to kind of the EBITDA, one thing I do want to get into today was how to think about this EBITDA, because that's the key valuation, again, metric that most people will be looking at. So I would say, if you really want to expand the universe of potential buyers, and needless to say, if there's more people interested in your company, you're going to find not only that your valuation tends to be driven up through some competitive, some competition through people, several potential suitors, which is good, but we also find that if you can open up the pool of potential buyers to more people, not only valuation tends to be higher, but you can sit down and meet with more types of buyers. There's private equity firms that focus on certain things. Certain groups may strike a chord with you. One group may not like the management team as well as another group. They're looking for that right fit. There can be cultural things that are a good match, and you really only know that by meeting with several potential buyers. And so if a seller does get into a process, we would start again with that EBITDA, and usually if you're north of $1 million, you would start to open that field up to more private equity firms and strategic buyers, where you're large enough that you kind of get on their radar, even better north of $5 million. So I guess being aware that a company's likely, if a company's generating a couple $100,000 of earnings, EBITDA, it's likely going to limit the pool of buyers. So that may limit the valuation. That may limit the types of people they can sit down and meet with to find the best fit. So I guess getting the company to a certain size is certainly very beneficial and helpful. That EBITDA number is what it is, basically. We keep talking about it. Again, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization. It's essentially operating income of the company. So you can, operating income in a business is simply defined as revenue minus cost of goods sold or cost of sales, and then minus the selling, general, and administrative expense, or the operating expense. So it's basically operating income before taxes, before interest, before those items. That's how a business is valued. And then we add back, if there's depreciation, amortization, then we would add that back. So if a company was doing $2 million of let's say operating income, and they had $500,000 of expense that was depreciation and amortization, the EBITDA number would be $2.5 million. So that's an increase to the operating income number. And the reason that people do that is it's a metric. It's an attempt to estimate what the cash flow earnings of the company are. So depreciation, amortization, as most people probably know, are non-cash journal entries. They don't represent cash outflows. So to get a ballpark, an apples-to-apples comparison across different companies, we like to look at that EBITDA number to get as a beginning, starting point for potentially what the company could sell for. And then, so again, it's a proxy for the cash earnings of the business, and it's used widely in the middle market, where people talk about what is the level of EBITDA and how can you grow your EBITDA and things of that nature. So that's a big focus of buyers. The reason we look at it before interest and taxes and some of those things is because you're really trying to get a look at the business for what it is, irrespective of how they finance the company or what their particular tax position might be, because those can be circumstances that are unique to particular buyers, and they may vary widely from buyer to buyer. But the true gross value of the business, before any of those factors, is taken into account before financing or tax considerations. Because after the sale, those things, again, could be different from buyer to buyer. So to get an apples-to-apples comparison for what the business is worth as it is today, that's why we look at it before interest and taxes. I guess the best analogy I can draw is that if you're buying a house, you don't look at how much debt the owner of the house has on the home. If the home's worth $400,000 and they have a $100,000 loan on the house, you don't offer them $300,000. You offer them $400,000. If the same house has no debt on it, you offer them $400,000. So you don't look at the leverage or even what the tax circumstances are. It's what is the gross value of that company. Now, if you were going to assume the debt, that would be different. Or if you were going to buy a house and assume the debt, then you would pay them $300,000. Most buyers will not assume debt. In some cases they will, but in general, they will pay for the business in terms of its gross value, and then the seller proceeds. The seller will then take, let's say a company is worth $10 million and they have $2 million of debt. They'll take the 10, they'll pay the $2 million off to the bank, and they'll put $8 million in their bank account. And so that debt is typically settled at close. That's the simple way a transaction is done. Multiple of EBITDA, cash-free, debt-free, which means, again, the seller pays the debt, and then the seller will typically take whatever cash is in the company and also keep that for themselves. Almost all of the time that'll be the case in how a transaction, from a very high level, how that is structured and how EBITDA comes into play. And then if we wanted to get into some add-backs, I'm happy to go over some of those as well if you think that'd be helpful.
Brad, I want to thank you for joining us. Please tell our audience how they can get in touch with you and your firm.
Yeah, the best way to reach, Lutz, the web address is www.lutz.us, as in United States. My phone number is 402-827-2032. Starting on the website is a good place to go, and feel free to reach out with any questions or anything I might be able to help you with.
Thank you. It's been a terrific guest, and thank you for joining us, Brad. And we may have you back as things hopefully continue to heat up in the economy. Thanks again for joining us.
Appreciate the time. Thank you.
Yeah, and you can hear all of Brad's interview or any other interview that we've done over the last year and a half by going to recalculating.biz and click on the show button, and you'll be able to see all the shows that we've done over the last year and a half. So thank you, Brad, and take care.
Thank you.
Marcus Lemonis, J.D. Powers, and John Scully and 100 other presidents and experts contributed to recalculating the book. Why did all these people agree to contribute to the book? I'm Don Mazzella, and I'm the editorial director of Small Business Digest. And for 20 years, we have been offering small business leaders information and data to increase profits. Recalculating the book was named the best small business book by the Independent Press Association. Whether you need help with marketing, staffing, finance, operations, technology, or many other subjects, they're all here in Recalculating the book. They're now available at Amazon at a reduced cost. We've also created the radio program Recalculating on recalculating.biz.
Dan Perkins here from Songs and Stories for Soldiers with your Veterans Tip of the Day. As a veteran, are you getting everything that you're entitled to? Many merchants are proud to offer discounts to veterans. They can be anything from a big box store to the corner market. Most don't do a very good job of promoting their veterans programs, so you'll have to do a little homework and find them on your own. This is especially important if you're making a major purchase like appliances or even a new car. So when you're going to the store, get into the habit of asking the salesperson, do you offer discounts to veterans? If they say yes, then ask how much. If you need a new refrigerator or a new washer and dryer, the discount for you could be significant. So make sure you get what you're entitled to by stepping up and asking, do you offer discounts for veterans? Your wallet will be better off for asking. This has been Dan Perkins with your Songs and Stories for Soldiers .us Veterans Tip of the Day.
In New York this week, 500 managers and bankers from across the fintech world met to discuss the rising use of online financial resource companies. It was the latest of a number of such concaves across the country. What does it mean for small business leaders? Speaker after speaker droned on about the funds available to grow their small businesses. Other panelists talked about the ease such companies are making the loan process. Finding the money to grow can be as short as an hour. Some speakers said the average was 3 days versus going to a more traditional banking resource, which could take up to 3 months. But as one speaker pointed out, small businesses can suffer in one way from the fintech revolution. The personal banking touch that puts the small business leader in physical proximity to the banker, that personal touch that can come in handy should growth plans not work out exactly as expected, is not there. There is an old saying, when you owe enough to the bank, you own the bank. Most banks won't let that happen, but having a personal relationship can ease some issues. Fintech bankers are about doing everything over the internet. For those times when the small business succeeds, this works great. But what happens if they don't? It's harder without that personal touch. Dan, tell us a little bit about your new book.
The book literally just went on for sale on Amazon. It's called Why Can't Grammy Remember Me? I believe it's the first book of its kind written for children of ages 9 to 12 dealing with dementia. And it's done as a mystery. And it's about two little girls, Hudson and Charlotte, who come face to face with trying to figure out what's happening to James's grandmother who has dementia. It's the children, Don, the children or grandchildren are the forgotten part of this puzzle of dementia. Mom and Dad are spending so much time trying to figure out how to help Grandma and Grandpa. They pay less attention to the needs of their grandchildren to understand what's happening to Grandma and Grandpa. So hopefully this book will not only help 9 to 12-year-olders, but it's also written for an entire family and has a whole series of programs and things that families can do together to preserve the memory of their grandparents. Available at Amazon.com.
And tell the name of the book again.
Why Can't Grammy Remember Me?
Thank you for joining us on Recalculating. We hope the information you received on today's episode was helpful to you in starting and growing your business. Please go to our website, recalculating.biz, to contact us, to listen to past shows, and see special offers. Until next time, remember, If you grow, we grow. Join us next week for more helpful ideas to make your business a great success. Recalculating, a program designed to help you be successful.